Hi, this is Gina, and for this Minute Clinic, I would like to talk to you about needles. First of all, we'll take a look at the anatomy of the needle. So this upper part here, you can see this is called the shank, and most of us are used to household sewing machine needles which have a flat spot on the back of the shank. We have the tapered edge at the top here. There's a groove that runs down the front of the needle all the way to the eye. This is where your thread is seated as it goes through your fabric so it doesn't cause extra wear and fraying on your fabric. The blade is the lower portion of the needle. We have the scarf in the back, which is sort of this cutout area here. Of course, the eye of the needle and then the tip of your needle. Now, not all needles are created equally, so let me show you over here some of the different types of needles. So our needles have two different things about them, and that will be the point of the needle and then the eye of the needle. So as we look at these, the universal needle is good for most types of fabrics in most types of weights. So from lightweight to a lighter heavyweight and anything in between there. If we look at our embroidery needle, as well as our metallic needle, these three needles have the same type of point. Our ballpoint needle has a rounded point. That's for use with knit fabrics so that you're not snagging or skipping. You can see the sharp point needle has a very sharp point. Our denim and quilting needles here have a similar type point, as does the top stitch needle. And then our stretch needle is also very sharply pointed. So those are the different types of points. And as we look at eyes, again, we'll compare to the universal. The sharp and the quilting are all about the same size, as is the jeans and denim needle, and the ballpoint and the stretch. You'll notice that our embroidery needle, our metallic needle, and our top stitch needle all have a larger eye than the standard universal. And that's because these are intended for use with thicker threads. So an important thing to know about your needles is that the size of the needles will most likely read on the package, we'll say 80-12 or 90-14 or 75-11. Those two numbers will always go together. One is the American size and one is the European size. So you won't find different combinations of those numbers. You'll always see the same two together. 80-12 is your most common size that you can use for most types of stitching, and that's designed for use with an all-purpose weight sewing thread, which is 50 weight. Our metallic needle has that larger eye because our metallic threads tend to be very delicate, and you want to cause as little friction on the thread as possible as it's going through the eye of the needle. So we have more clearance here. Same thing is true of our embroidery threads, more so if you're working with rayons than if you're using the polyester threads. And then our top stitch threads tend to be heavier threads, so we need that bigger eye for more clearance for them to pass through. When we're talking about sizes of needles, as the size number gets bigger, or higher I should say, so an 80 versus a 90, the larger the number, the larger the needle is going to be. So it's important, if you're working with specialty threads, to use an appropriate size needle. So this is a heavyweight 30 weight thread, and you'll see here on the label that it says use a 90 or 100 top stitch needle. Because this is a heavier thread, you need to use the top stitch, which has the larger eye, and you need a bigger size so that the groove down the front of the needle can accommodate that heavier weight thread. So I hope this information helps you out as you're selecting needles. Oh, and one more point to remember. Your needles do dull over time, so you don't want to leave them in your machine until they break. Your needle has about 8 hours of actual sewing time before it starts to get dull and is going to be less effective and may damage your fabric. So again, I hope this information helps you out as you're selecting needles for the type of project you're working on and the type of thread you're using. This has been your Kingdom Sewing Minute Clinic.